welcome. Welcome to those of you who are joining live. Welcome to those of you who are joining on your own time for the replay. Thank you for making the time for yourself to commune with you, yourself, and you. That's really my intention for doing this morning ritual, is to pave a way for you to really meet yourself and to spend some time um, just going inward. We live in this modern world that places so much value on the external, and so much of our wisdom lives outside of us. It's based on what other people think, or sort of living up to expectations, or what it looks like on the outside. And so it's a very countercultural action to be here with me live on Instagram or Facebook, and to be sort of diving into these things that no one ever taught us. No one ever taught me these things in school. I never learned these things about myself. I find that to be so curious, that we learn about all these things out in the world, and we become expert in our field, or whatever it might be that we are passionate about. But really, like, when did anybody ever teach us, like, how we work? Like, when did anyone ever teach you how your mind works, or how your emotions work, or how it all fuses together to form your personality, and how you can interact with that? These are conversations that I don't think most of us had kind of growing up. And so as adults, it's our job to have these conversations now, and as adults to teach ourselves the skills and the tools with this new awareness, so that we can form new pathways, new ways of being. So thank you so much for opening yourself up to that. Thank you for being willing to do that. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about nature and the wisdom that lies in the changing of the seasons. And so before we do that, I would just invite you to close your eyes and place one hand on your heart and the other hand on your belly, and just take a few moments to breathe. We can just sort of all breathe here separately but together. And again, this is like the deepest invitation to come into the present moment using the mechanism of your breath. So just breathe long, slow, deep, and full. In and out through your nose, or whatever is comfortable for you. And just like we practiced last week, the skill of pratyahara, of going inward, sort of get a sense for all the anchors, the energetic anchors that you might have dropped down outside of yourself, the things that are taking your energy at this moment. Whether it's conflict with family, or a worry that you might have about your health or a loved one's health, or maybe stress about work, or something going on with your kids, whatever it is that's taking your energy out there, I invite you to pull those anchors up from wherever they are outside of yourself, and then to draw them close using your mind and the intention of your energy. And then to drop those anchors down back inside of yourself, so that right now, just for however long we're together here this morning, you can just really be here without any outside pull, without any outside distraction, without your brain or your body trying to skip ahead or jump back into the past. That you could just be fully here, fully present, fully available for whatever life has for you this morning. Because if you're here, I believe that you're meant to be here, and there's something here for you. There's something here for you that's meant to touch your life, that's meant to help you, that's meant to support you, to help you create something different going forward. So draw all your power back, all your presence back into your body, into this very, very moment. Permission to be exactly where your body is, and to receive whatever life has for us all right here, right now. Everyone, just take a full breath in and a full breath out. Beautiful. As you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. Welcome, welcome. I had a few more come in now. So I invite you to use your journal if you wish, And we're going to have just a small conversation about the seasons and why I feel that this is important for us to be considering right now. Then we're going to finish with a beautiful mantra Kriya called Om Namo Narayanaya. And so we'll finish with this practice of sort of devotion and mantra focus. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this. This is something that I've talked with y'all about in the past, and I think that like repetition is key when it comes to certain things like this. But today we're talking about the wisdom of nature. There are certain universal laws, and the way that nature operates is the backbone of many of our universal laws and truths. But one of the universal laws is that, if there is all this wisdom in nature, to be able to just know what to do, like really amazing things. Like in our backyard, we have multiple different species of trees, right? And each tree like has its own cycle. Like they bloom their leaves, and then they lose their leaves at different times. And I think it's probably like has something to do with where they're situated and where the water source is. But somehow, some way, each of those trees knows which nutrients are for them and which are for the others, right? And it knows when to absorb them, when to bloom, and when to let go, right? And it just knows how to extract those nutrients, which ones are theirs, and how to use them, right? Butterflies are such a phenomenal species. Every year they migrate. And I'm probably not going to get all my facts straight. This is just coming to me right now in this moment. It's so funny. I plan and plan and plan for these things. And then the second the camera turns on, my notes are just out the window and I just kind of start intuitively going. So it's kind of interesting for me. But butterflies have this migratory pattern where it takes, I think they migrate from Canada, let's say from Canada to Mexico, to keep it clean. It's something like that. But what happens is that somehow in their DNA, these butterflies just know where to go, which migratory patterns to follow. But the thing that just blows my mind is that the lifespan of a butterfly is not long enough to complete the entire journey. So it literally takes, I think it takes 3 generations of the monarch butterfly to complete its migratory pattern, which means that the first butterfly will make it a third of the way of the journey, and then they'll have their offspring, and then they'll die, and then those offspring will literally pick up where their predecessors left off, complete the second leg of the journey, do their part of the cycle, and then their offspring will finish completely. And like, how do they know how to do that? Right? Like, how do they know where they are and how much longer they have to go? Right? It blows my mind. If you saw my stories a few weeks ago, there's this walk that my partner and I take every day, and through our neighborhood, and there's this stump that just blows my mind. There's this stump that one of our neighbors cut off, right? So it's just like a couple of feet from the ground, and it's just a stump. But then on the side of the stump, there's this whole new branch and outgrowth, and this new tree essentially that's forming from this branch. And every time I walk by it, I get like emotional and like really touched, because it's like nature will always find a way. Nature always knows what to do, and it will always find a way. Right? Can you see that? That somewhere intuitively on the inside, nature knows when it's time to flourish and when it's time to die, when it's time to expand and when it's time to contract. Like, nature just knows these rhythms intuitively. And here's the beautiful part, is that we as humans are a big part of nature. So if these laws of the universe are true for the leaves and for the butterflies and for the trees and for the different species of foliage, if it's true for all of those components of nature, then guess what? It's true for us as well. And so we as humans can trust the rhythms of nature just like all of the other species that we see around us, okay? And that's really like the heart of my message this morning, is that the ability that we might look through a lens and see ourselves as part of this macro organism of life and of nature. And if all of these miraculous cycles can be trusted out there in nature, then all of these miraculous cycles can be trusted also within each of us. And so today we're just kind of tapping into that, tapping into the idea that the way we live in our modern, specifically Western society, doesn't always jive with nature. And that might cause us some uncomfortability or some strain or whatever, you fill in the blank for you. And throughout this conversation, we might uncover of potential pockets of potentiality where if we're more in line, more in tune, more in the rhythm of nature, good morning, Claire, that we might be more at ease, or that we might be more in the flow. We might be going more with the grain instead of against the grain, right? In our lives. And so maybe tapping in to the innate wisdom of nature, using nature as a reference or a leader, so to speak, could be one way for us to create more ease, and more actually more efficiency in our lives if we allow ourselves as humans to go with the ebb and flow like nature does. So, what does this mean to me and to us right here in this moment? I think that the contrast, how we can explore how we aren't doing this, could give us a unique example of how we could do this. So, as a yoga teacher, I think I can use myself as a prime example. And I'm not here to complain, and I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. And I don't really think things like this are actually going to change, so to speak. But I think that just by like drawing our awareness to these cycles, it could be illuminating. So I think it's curious that, we just had daylight savings, and so we're kind of like maneuvering things to help us stay in our cycles. But as modern day Westerners, we basically have this set schedule, and the schedule doesn't change all year round, right? That's why it's super hard for parents when their kids are on summer vacation or on break. Like there's no maneuvering of the schedule. So like in Denver, I was an early morning yoga teacher, like a 6 a.m. yoga teacher all year round. And it's so much easier to get up and teach those classes in the summer months when you open your eyes and the sun is already coming out and there's sort of that vibrancy and the world is like waiting for you, right? And the sun is already out. It's very welcoming. It's very energizing. And it's very quote unquote, it's easier. I'm not a morning person, but that's not really the point. It's easier to step into those early morning activities when the sun is there to greet you. Conversely, when you teach a 6 a.m. class in the dead of winter and it's pitch black when you get up to teach your class, like it's a lot harder to muster the excitement, the enthusiasm, the energy to go teach that same class. And so, I mean, that's a kind of a rudimentary example, but just notice that from the summer to the winter months, our schedules don't change, right? Our body's biorhythms, our alarm stays the same. We have the same obligations, the same duties. But the world outside, the window of daylight has contracted and shrunk significantly. Yet our expectations of ourselves is that we would still be responsible to show up the same way, the same times, regardless. Okay. And that's sort of like what I'm here to draw attention to this morning is that we have this mechanism that we push through and expect the same type of performance, the same type of enthusiasm, and the same type of result of ourselves all year round, right? Although everything that's happening around us in nature isn't following that same rhythm, isn't following that same schedule. Everything outside of us is expanding and contracting, but our intention usually as modern day Westerners is to stay open, right? We never allow ourselves contraction, which is rest time or inward time. We expect the same things of ourselves year round, no matter what, regardless of the circumstance. And what does that do to us over time? Answer that question for yourself. What does that feel like to you inside of your body, inside of your mind, inside of your heart and your emotions when you have to keep showing up no matter what, all day, 24/7, 365 days a year? And I know it's not exactly like that, but it's kind of like that. And what would life be like if you allowed yourself some permission to expand and contract? to take a later class in the morning during the winter months, to adjust your workouts to maybe get more sleep during those moments, during those months of the year when we're designed to get more sleep. Which brings me to my next point. So, women's reproduction can actually be like sort of a window into all of this for us. So, women, female oriented bodies, as they move through the cycle of the month, they move through four distinct cycles in the menstrual cycle. And so basically each week of the month has a different phase. There's the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. And if you want a reference on this, Kate Northrup wrote a book called Do Less. And it's all about structuring feminine bodies, structuring their monthly calendar based on their individual menstrual cycle. So the idea is that during each of these 4 weeks during the month, the female-oriented body, based on what's happening with the menstrual cycle, will have different levels of energy, will have different levels of hormonal resources, will have more resistance to life or less resistance to life. So the idea is that, during the ovulatory and luteal phases, usually that's when women are preparing to house life, preparing the body to reproduce. And so to do that, the body gets all filled with pumped up with these hormones, and these are creative hormones. These are the hormones of creation. And so usually women during their ovulatory phase feel like they're on top of the world and they can accomplish anything, right? And so Kate Northrup's wisdom is that, if that's you and if that's how that shows up for you in your cycle, that when you look at your month and if you need to be creative or get something done and like really pour yourself into something, if you can schedule that during the ovulatory or even luteal phases, probably ovulatory phase of your cycle, then all of your inner resources will be available for that creative project. Conversely, usually when women are in the menstrual phase is when things are breaking down, and it actually includes the luteal phase as well. So that's when the body is releasing the blood and releasing everything that it needed when it thought it was going to create life. And that can be when women get cramps and PMS and feel really uncomfortable and they don't have hormonal resources and don't have energetic resources. And so the thinking in that context would be that if you can, schedule your month, like that's probably not the time to schedule like your big presentation or, have 6 clients back to back to back to back in one day, et cetera, et cetera. And I realize that not everyone has the ability or the luxury to formulate their schedules completely in this way. But I think that the wisdom, the intention, the awareness of forming your life like this can be really powerful, even if you can't do it all the way. And then the funny part about all of this is they say that men's bodies, male-oriented bodies, experience these 4 cycles every 24 hours. So men sort of experience, instead of like throughout the 1 week a month, they kind of have each of these 4 cycles throughout the course of a day. And so male-oriented bodies can understand the rhythms, and females as well, obviously, but the ins and outs of how their energy resources show up throughout the day. So these can be macro cycles, like a month, or it can be a micro cycle from day to day of like getting in tune with your energy. And man, I'm a night person, so my creativity really comes out at night. So therefore, I'm not going to beat myself up for not getting up at 6 a.m., et cetera, et cetera. And just allowing yourself permission to lean into your energy resources whenever they come most naturally to you in your physical body. So I think that, excuse me, kind of looking at our lives through the lens of nature, through the lens of these sort of reproductive phases and cycles, can give us a lot of information as to, our bodies were not designed to go 10 out of 10, 7 days a week, 4 weeks out of the month, 12 months out of the year. And yet our minds expect that. Okay, so where in your mind, notice how we can understand this cognitively. Like, of course this makes sense. Of course everything in nature, like there's 4 seasons, there's a time to live and a time to die, and there's like all these things. Of course we know that cognitively. However, when it shows up in our lives, I think we have a lot of resistance to it, and we have a lot of shoulds. We like to should all over ourselves. One of my favorite things to share is that I studied with Baron Baptiste many years ago, and he said that the word should is one of the most damaging words in all of the English language. And I have to agree with him. I have clients all the time coming to me like, I should do this, I should be better, it shouldn't be like this. Should implies that life is different than it is meant to be. And the word should has an element of disapproval or disappointment or lack or whatever just kind of baked into it. But anyway, like we should all over ourselves. Like I should be doing more. I should have done better. I should be more productive. I shouldn't be this tired, right? And so we understand the rhythms and the cycles cognitively, but when it comes time to actually give ourselves permission to embody those waves, that's where the resistance comes up. And so as you explore this in your life this week, the trick isn't that you wouldn't be resistant to this, that you would be like, oh, I'm doing this and it feels amazing. That's probably not where we'll land, at least not right away. The practice then is that noticing that the seasons are changing and that autumn is a time to let go, and that winter and to allow things to die and to shift and to change, and that winter is a time to hibernate and to cocoon, and maybe even allow your body to take on a little bit extra padding or whatever that looks like for you. And so as you explore these concepts for yourself and in your actual life, your job then is to see the resistance as it comes, like, oh no, I couldn't gain an extra 5 pounds for the winter, or I couldn't take that off my calendar, this 6 a.m. off my calendar for the next 3 months, or gosh, what would that mean if I went to a nighttime class instead of a morning class? Like that's the resistance that comes up, and that's for you to witness on behalf of yourself and notice and to sit with the resistance and to see what the resistance has to teach you and to show you, because when the resistance shows itself, those are the beliefs or those are the ways of being or those are the emotions that you have the opportunity to sort through for yourself so that you can embody this. All right. So resistance isn't a bad thing. It's actually a good thing when you see the resistance, because it means that you're trying to do something differently than you've been doing it up until this point. So resistance can actually be a barometer that you're on the right path because you're doing something differently. Okay. So what else do I have to share? We're heading into the winter months. We have tons of fog and rain, and it's getting ready to snow here. And really moving from Colorado to Minnesota was the first time that I was really able to taste this, the wisdom of the seasons for myself. Because now living up north, living in a place that's so cold, and Colorado and Minnesota have some similarities. Everyone here thinks they're like, oh, you should be used to this. You're from Colorado. And it's really, there's some similarities, but it's quite different here than it is in Denver. But when I moved here, there's some sort of beauty about like, there's nobody on the streets when it gets really bad. Like nobody goes out when it's negative 18. And nobody feels bad about it because it's just that cold, right? And there was such a gift to me last winter, where I was like, wow, we get to stay home and I don't have to feel bad about it, right? And it gave me permission to read and to cocoon and to get on our Peloton and to cozy up and to watch some shows and to experiment with new recipes. And it's something that it's a gift that I've never been able to give myself in the past, because I've always had that mechanism of like, push through, doesn't matter what the season does, doesn't matter that there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, get there, show up, do it, push through, make it happen. And so living here in Minnesota was really the first time that I tasted like, gosh, what is life like when I don't have to do that, right? What is life like when I don't have to push through all of these very natural, seemingly barriers or cycles and just be with what is, right? Just be with what is instead of trying to override and make what I want to have happen. And so even if you don't live in Minnesota, even if you don't live in a place that's frigidly cold where everyone goes in, just know that the contraction is necessary to the expansion. I read a book called Into the Magic Shop, and it's so fun because all of this work is both and. It's not either or, right? But Into the Magic Shop, he said that you stay open by not closing. And I love that. And he was talking about just living life with an open heart and just choosing to like keep an open heart no matter what happens to you. You stay open by not closing. And I think that's so beautiful. And can we keep our open heart, but also recognize that in order to expand, in order to give, in order to bear fruit, in order to give ourselves to the world, we don't do that by staying open in perpetuity, right? That is unsustainable, and I feel like it's unhealthy in many ways, just to stay open, just to give, just to keep performing, keep producing, keep going all the time, right? The way we actually open is by closing sometimes. Right? The way that we keep giving birth, the way that we keep being creative, the way that we keep renewing, right, is that we allow ourselves to expand by giving ourselves permission to contract and go inward, and recognizing that that's the cycle that we must rest and rejuvenate in order to produce and perform, that we must take and receive and nourish so that we can give and share and heal, right? And one does not exist. Just like nature, one does not exist without the other, right? There is a time to be born, there is a time to dance, and there is a time to die, right? And that leads us, I got a little emotional just then. There's a time to be born, a time to dance, and a time to die, right? And we love the birth and the dancing, but the dying part we have problems with. And maybe that's just a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. I think there was actually something that I wanted to read to you. I don't know if it still feels pertinent. Let me look at it, and then we're going to do our Krya practice. Maybe it's not quite here. Oh, I guess I can't find exactly what I was looking for. Oh, it's back here. Okay, yeah, here it is. It's from The Inner Tradition of Yoga, which is a really profound book. And I'm using this book as the touchstone for my teaching, which is the third Wednesday of every month. And we're talking about the kleshas, which are the ways that we contribute to our suffering. But in this passage, in the foreword by Richard Freeman, he says, the traditional context for yoga, awakening to the simple truth of impermanence, to universal death, is all that has been missing. This simple truth of impermanence and knowledge of universal death, this is what awakens our compassion and shows us the interconnectedness not only of all beings, but of techniques, styles, and viewpoints. It sobers the mind and wakes us up from spiritual pride and materialism. So maybe this conversation about cycles and seasons is really a conversation about impermanence, right? And allowing the cycle of it all. And so this mantra Krya, the chant is Om Namo Narayanaya. And the reason that we do mantra Krya is it's almost like a focal point or a bone for the brain to chew on, that we direct our focus to the mantra so that all other thoughts are sort of displaced away and there's not a lot of room for the chitta or the distraction to come in. So we chant this chant. It's a full voice chant, like singing. It's going to be really beautiful. I'll lead us. We bring our hands to our heart, and as we sing Om Namo, we reach the arms overhead, and then Narayanaya, we just let the arms come out to the side, right? And each of the movements symbolizes a phase of this birth-death cycle, of the everything is born, everything sustains, and then everything dies. All right, so I chose this because it brings our awareness to those three distinct parts of the cycle, that we birth, that we participate and then we let go. And then we just keep doing it again and again and again and again. All right, so we'll do this for several minutes together. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels safe to you, and we begin. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Feel each part. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Just know that these sounds are simply vibration, just an offering. Nothing about these words can hurt you or harm you. It's all benevolent. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Keep going. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Last one. Om Namo Narayanaya. Receptivity pose. And just hold your palms up towards the sky. Just allow yourself a few moments to simply receive, to just be available for whatever the yoga has for you right now. And then as you're ready, draw one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly once more. And take a big breath in. Hold, take another sip at the top. Just really anchor all of this wisdom and beauty in. And release. As you're ready, just open your eyes. Thank you so much, my friends. I hope that this was useful for you today. Some awareness about nature and how she operates, and the knowingness that we are part of nature. And so whatever is true for her is true for us, right? And we can trust the ebbs and flow of those natural cycles, both out in the world and within our own biorhythms, that we can trust them even though everything in the world says to override, to push past, to hustle through, right? That we can learn to work with our systems instead of against them. Again, Kate Northrup's book, Do Less, is a great resource. And this is something that I help my clients with all the time, right? To work with themselves instead of against themselves, and to uncover this cultural conditioning that each of us individually and collectively has received, so that we can update those messages and form new rules, new conditions for our lives that we want to live towards, instead of just kind of operating by these rules that we've inherited that we might not even see that we're conforming to. So I hope that this is useful for you. If you have any questions, comments, drop that in the chat. I'd love to answer them right now. You're always welcome to message me when this is all over. We can talk about it offline.